Hello and welcome to Tuesday Tips. My name is Pam Dunwald and I am one of your nurses from Your Nurse Advocate Consulting. And if you've joined us this evening, things are a little different. We're going to be talking about aging in place. Safety starts at the front door. So the month of May, we're going to be focusing on plans and what it takes for your aging loved one to age in place. And that's one of the top three trends. We just finished our webinar. And so we're going to give you some tips today. We're going to talk about, to get us started, we're going to talk about some pros and cons of aging in place. So if you're getting ready to have a conversation with an aging loved one, this might have some helpful tips for you to try and discuss some of these things on weighing in on whether or not it's a great idea to age in place or have that plan B when aging in place is really no longer feasible. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to thank everyone that attended our webinar on the top three trends in senior care. We talked about mental health issues. We talked about aging in place. We talked about multi-generational living, and it was a great webinar, and we had our workbook to go with us. So we're going to be planning the same thing for the end of this month, but we're just going to do a deep dive into aging in place. We weren't able to do that on the amount of time for our webinar when we were talking about the three trends all together. So we think aging in place deserves its own webinar. And so we'll have a workbook for that. We'll have some thought-provoking questions, things to help you plan and prepare and to see if this is a feasible idea in helping your aging loved one plan for the future. So let's go ahead and jump in and start looking at some pros and cons. First, before we do that, we are live on our Facebook group, we are live on our Facebook page. So I'm able to post things in the chat. You can ask me questions as we go along, so feel free to do that. Facebook had a change in policy, so we can no longer live stream in our private group. You can on your business page, but you can't in your group. So I'm trying to work through the best way to handle that. But right now, we're just going to be going live on our Facebook page, the Your Nurse Advocate Consulting, Your RN Advocate. So, all right, let's take a look at some pros. So, post-pandemic, a lot of our aging adults and our seniors, they knew a lot of friends. It was a really a horrible and sometimes cruel experience having family members in the nursing homes. They were so isolated away from everyone. They couldn't have visitors. No one could go in. If they were coming from a hospital, going to the nursing home, they oftentimes had to isolate in their room for 14 days, couldn't associate with anyone else. They had to eat, do everything in their room, which was not a pleasant experience. Again, in the beginning, looking at what was necessary, what was not. So that left a lot of hurt and emotionally distraught people living in the nursing home. And now moving forward, we have a shortage of healthcare providers. We have open beds in nursing homes, but oftentimes there's not the staff to care for them. So that's becoming more of a challenge. By the year 2030, all of our baby boomers are going to be 65 years of age or older. So that's going to do to our healthcare system. So aging in place, as you can probably figure out, is become one of the top three trends in senior care for 2024. And moving forward, I don't think that that's going to become less of a trend over the next several years. So let's look at some pros. So one of the pros for aging in place is the comfort of living in a familiar environment. They know the lay of the land, so to speak. They can get themselves to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Hopefully there's night lights, but they're very familiar with their surroundings. And so that can be a safety factor in itself. They're in a place where they want to be. That's their happy place, their home. Everybody has their story about how they got where they were. Maybe they built their home. Maybe they inherited a home. It was passed down from generation to generation. It may be the family farm that's been in the family for 100 years. Or it may be the place where they raised their children and they got married and that was their home where they had their family. So lots of different memories, lots of different reasons to want to remain in that home. And we always hear people say, well, you're going to have to take me out of here in a black, in a bag. So, or in a body bag, they say. So there's lots of reasons why people want to remain at home. Another reason why people want to remain at home is is they've paid off their house. They have no mortgage anymore. So why would they give up, being able to live and afford staying in their home and giving that all up and have to pay to go to an assisted living or to a nursing home? So there's lots of different reasons and a lot of different things to think about when you're planning on aging in place. Another pro is just having the opportunity to maintain their independence. Another uh, pro, so to speak, would be, they continue to live in the neighborhood. Maybe they have lifelong friends, neighbors. They help each other. They have, block parties, or they have younger neighbors that help them out. There's just a community, and that's where their circle is, because we all know as our aging adult circle gets smaller, and they lose people, they lose family and friends their own age, they could suffer from that loneliness and isolation if they don't replace that circle with other people. And oftentimes it might be their neighbors, and they might be, of a younger generation. Personalized care. That's another pro for aging in place is, maybe you have support from family members. Maybe your family can help support you and be those resource people for you to be able to age safely in place, and they can help manage things as your health conditions change. So those are a lot of pros. Now, what about some of the cons? What about some of the reasons that aging in place might not be a great idea? Well, we talked about it in a little bit ago, where the potential for isolation and loneliness, especially if an aging loved one is alone. Maybe they've lost their spouse, their partner, significant other, whomever maybe they've been sharing their home with, and now they live alone. So that sets them up to be lonely and isolated if they're not getting out of the home, if they don't have people visiting them, if they're not staying active, they don't have a purpose, maybe getting out, volunteering, learning a new skill, learning a new hobby or a craft. There is that potential. The number two con that we want to talk about is financial burden of home modifications, and in-home care can be significant. So what are the considerations that you're going to have to think about when you make the decision or you make the plan to want an age in place? So what modifications are going to be made in your home? If it's an older home, maybe the doorways to the bathroom are not wheelchair or walker accessible. You can't fit it in. Maybe the bathroom is small that maybe only one person can get in there. Do you have a walk-in shower, or do you have a tub that you have to lift your leg over and get in? Do you need a shower chair? Do you need grab bars? Is everything on one level, or is the laundry, in the basement? Is that going to be a safety hazard? Or is the bedroom upstairs? We have many people that live in a tri-level, and they have to go either downstairs or upstairs. They go upstairs to go to bed, or maybe go downstairs to do laundry, or, depending on how the house is laid out. So what is it going to cost to make those home modifications? And what about the care costs as healthcare changes? And that's one of the things, as a nurse advocate, that's one of the beneficial things that we can do for a family that's looking at aging in place, is to look at any healthcare conditions you have, and we can help you predict in the future what those extra healthcare needs might be as that disease or that illness progresses. We can help look at what kind of support you may need in the home in the future, and then we can help you plan for what you might need. So if you have to get private caregivers to come into the home, what are your assets? Do you qualify for some state assistance? Do you qualify for Medicaid or for county help? Do you have to pay privately for caregivers to come in? How often? What does that look like? Are we going to be possibly dealing with dementia? What is that? What are those extra services going to entail? When you live in a rural area and you think about transportation, if you live in a more of an urban area, they have a lot of medical transportation. They have vans and that can accommodate wheelchair, and it costs nothing more than a cab ride. So you have these types of things. But if you live in a rural community, what access you need to look at your county aging department and see what kind of resources you have for transportation, especially if you don't have family members that work, and they may have to take days off or arrange schedules to be able to get you to the doctor. So these are a lot of things to think about as well. Again, think about safety concerns in the home. Is there a lot of throw rugs? is there tripping, or, are there stairs? What kind of safety hazards are going to have to be looked at with staying in that particular home? And as time goes by, their ability to make sure that their daily needs are met, is possible. Running errands, are they going to be able to get out and grocery shop? Are they going to be able to prepare meals? These are all things that as we continue to age, today might be okay, but 5 years from now, what is it going to look like? And if they're still wanting to age in place, and like I said, if you have a family, an aging loved one says they're going to have to drag me out of this house kicking and screaming, there's a lot of planning that's going to have to go into place to make sure that we can keep them home as safe and as long as possible. So these are some of the pros and some of the cons that we're going to be that's going to be discussed as we take this journey on planning to age in place. And what are the things that we're going to be, need to look at leading up to our webinar at the end of the month? Like I said, this is a working webinar, as was the last trends webinar. We have a workbook. We'll be asking questions. You'll be able to jot down things that pertain to you. So these Tuesday tips and some of our social media posts, prior to that webinar towards the end of the month, is going to be just kind of preparing us and getting us kind of on that thought process of aging in place, so that when we get to the webinar, we're really going to be able to dig in and look at some of those specifics. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check in and see if you've got any questions as far as aging in place, or what you would like us to cover, or things that specific questions that you may have for your loved one. Please drop it in the comment. I can get them answered, or we can make sure that we address that on next week's Tuesday tips, or also include that in our webinar or some of our social media posts. So really interested, because, please don't be shy about asking questions or sharing, because this is a way, with your participation, this is the only way that we really know that we're giving you the information that you need, and that everything is relevant to your situation. So please don't hesitate to drop us a question. I see that we had some people on. I don't see any questions, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to end this episode of Tuesday Tips, and we'll see you on our social media. We'll see you on YouTube channel and back in our private forum where we have ongoing discussions. So we'll see you next week. Take care.